attention was directed toward Rapp's pleas for help. As the pinpoint was aimed at the bubble, he frantically described the tinted face shield of his potential killer. 25 years at the Space Investigative Bureau had alerted me to the shrill crescendo of a pinpoint pulsar's thin red beam. I heard the bubble rip as Rapp cried out for mercy. The outward gush of air into the cold, diminished Martian atmosphere was soon replaced by his mournful whimper. He pushed out my name in his last remaining gasps.
Cobb. Cobb.
Rapp, can you hear me? I sat up fully in the recliner and gripped my perforated zip. The signal went out. Rapp! Rapp! The pulverizing sand and wind gusts grew louder now. I leaned toward the shuttle's oval portal. Behind the backdrop of stars, Mars cast a rusty glow beyond the shuttle's gray wing. Rapp was dead, thousands of kilometers away on the planet's surface.
Harry Cobb is a former bureau inspector who now works in private investigations in the intrasolar system. Cobb is arriving on Mars from the Orbitus colony shuttle. He gets a call from Jason Rapp, who was supposed to meet him at breakfast on Orbitus, but mysteriously disappeared. Rapp is in a severe dust storm on Mars and is telling Cobb that somebody is trying to kill him. He is pleading for help. Through the scratchy transmission, Rapp describes the tinted face shield of his potential killer. Then, after the sound of a pinpoint pulsar, Rapp is dead. He had talked to Harry yesterday about a cover-up in the Turcotte ore refining operation on Mars. Cobb actually heard the air gush out of the bubble in the middle of the dust storm where Rapp was killed. He hurries to the front of the shuttle and talks to the navigator as the planet Mars approaches in a vast window span ahead. He is requesting an enhanced scan of the planet. On the map, he sees a dot flashing 18 kilometers out from the Livingston Dome. He places a call to his friend, Inspector John Patnoe, on Mars. He tells Patnoe that somebody just shot a pinpoint pulsar through Rapp's rover bubble in the middle of the storm. Patnoe tells Cobb that a man named Kranz, whom Cobb knows from the past and has interfered with Cobb's many bureau investigations, will be handling the case. Last night in the Orbitus casino, he had seen Ariana Cervantes. It had been 10 years since he spent time with Ariana in the Barsoom Dome, and now he had met her again. Rapp had told him that Ed Stanton from the Turcotte operation had called him out to the smeltering plant, IP5. Cobb knows that Stanton knows the truth about the irregularities at IP5. He was supposed to meet Rapp in the breakfast room at the Orbitus Hotel, but the meeting never materialized. He pictures last night how he trudged up the stairs to meet Ariana once again. She stood and approached Cobb. She extended her hand. She thought that she'd never see him again. She looped her arm around Cobb's arm. She told him she often thinks about Barsoom and their time there. Cobb tells her that he's sorry about her father's death. Her father had headed Amalgamated Sureties, a vast, rich operation throughout the intrasolar system. Ariana says that people are the heart and soul of every operation. She wants to get together with Harry Cobb and talk about old times. Desmond Turcotte, the oldest son of Jared Turcotte, who runs the operations on Mars, calls Harry on his zip, talks about the IP investigation. Harry immediately suspects Desmond in some type of nefarious activities out at IP5. He puts a memo in to his secretary, Sadie, back on Orbitus. The memo also goes out to his chief investigator, Rennie Coburn, Max and Jody, who are other investigators for him around the solar system. From space, Cobb is able to see that a white containment dome has already been put around the rover. Harry goes back to sleep, and Patnoe calls him 3 times. He thinks about last night about Ariana in the Orbitus Cafe. Patnoe tells him that Rapp did not have a terrain suit on inside that rover bubble. He talks about the roads to Livingston blocked by the storm, but someone could have gotten around. Patnoe will check the frequency of the pulsar to find out who manufactured the weapon.
All Rapp saw was a T-suit and a facial shield and had no idea who was about to kill him. Then he thinks of Ariana and why he had let her go. Ariana suggested that they meet in the Excelsior Hotel's restaurant tomorrow night. Harry drifts between sleep and the Orbiter shuttle. He might take a rover bus tomorrow to IP5 to interview all plant personnel. The shuttle descends into the thin Martian atmosphere. How did Jason Rapp have any information at all? Maybe he was getting money and that's why he missed breakfast. Patno is eating cheesecake when he talks to him again on the zip. The IP5 plant manager Joe Lockheed is missing. Lockheed left the plant in a dust storm just before the murder. Rapp may have been blackmailing Lockheed. The charcoal-tinted Livingston Dome comes into view with the hotels aligned on top of the dome. Dark dust clouds are lurking across the terrain. Patno has spoken with his people. Rapp had gotten 2 years in the detention wheel when he was 19 years old, working for the crime syndicate, the Devon Group. He talks about Rapp working at the Primo Casino. Harry calls it the heartland of vulgarity and heathens, and he says, "I miss it." Then he places a call to Sadie. There's an extensive report on Rapp. She calls him a scoundrel. He tries to reach Rennie, but Rennie is in the transaction zone where communication is sketchy. Harry wants to know why Ed Stanton wants him looking into this at IP5 at all. Harry is staying at the Hotel Dillon down in the dome. The tracer flight is rough across the dust storm into the desert. Another name comes up, Jim Oakley, a Turcotte employee who worked at IP5 and was on the IP5 road at the time of Rapp's death. Patno finds out that a Samantha Evans rented a rover 45 minutes after Oakley left on the IP5 connector road. Harry remembers an old case on Earth that involves Samantha Evans. As the tracer moves across the ground through the storm, Kranz's grating voice comes through the speaker. Kranz doesn't like Harry and won't let him in the dome without the administrator Burkhart giving him a clearance. But Patno knows things about Lieutenant Kranz and gets Harry inside. Sand hits the outer dome walls as the Heborn light towers shine down over the rover. It's cold in there even with the heaters. The melted silcoplast exterior of Rapp's rover is visible below. Kranz is rushing them and trying to get them out of the area. Harry thinks that Rapp had knowledge of the IP5 cover-up. Patno finds out that a man named Burroughs was killed with the same pulsar registered to a man named Caldwell on Earth. Orby from IP5 said that Oakley was on the road the same time as Rapp and Lockheed. Harry is with Patno, his daughter, son-in-law, and his wife, Gwen. He sips on some amber chill liquor. Patno dips into cheesecake. He says sometimes fate has a life of its own. A red memo sounds. Samantha Evans' rover aligns with a 5'7" Banfield lunar colony woman named Samantha Evans. But Evans was away from the lunar colony all the time. She's originally from Baltimore. She was once charged with fraud and grand larceny. Oakley is nowhere to be found on Mars. Patno gives him some Jaffrin, a high-powered energy drink that keeps you awake. Desmond marches into the restaurant where they sit. He remembers Desmond as a smart-mouthed little brat. His brother Brandon moves alongside. Desmond tells Harry to consider himself a friend of the Turcottes. He admits that there were production problems at IP5. He wants Harry to find the truth about Rapp's murder. He gives him a 50 droid retainer and expenses to move forward with the investigation. Harry wants to know if Desmond's father, Jared, knew about the IP5 incident. But Jared is in the Caribbean and has been moved out of the main portion of the company and knows nothing about the IP5 problems. Brandon doesn't know Rapp, but he says that Joe Lockheed, the plant manager, was a no-nonsense type of guy who did his job well. Harry's thinking of contacting Jared. In the meantime, he's daydreamed about Ariana. He thinks about the chateau back in the Barsoom Dome 10 years ago. The old fires have definitely been rekindled. Harry will go out to IP5's main office tomorrow morning at 8:30. Patno mentions quite bluntly to his old friend that he hopes Harry knows what he's doing getting involved with Ariana.
They next see Rapp's corpse on a forensic table. Harry shuns away from the main investigation, and Patno tells him he doesn't like details. Cobb replies back that he likes details just fine when they have relevance. Samantha Evans was a tall blonde with blue eyes. She's been missing for 10 years. Patno brings him over 2 steaming cups of Jaffrin. Instantly, Harry's sinus headache is gone. They look at a simulation on the screen of Rapp's killing. The angle of fire is only slightly higher than Jason Rapp. However, the sands had shifted and the angle is useless given the present data. Then Patno turns to Harry and tells him he's scared to death that he'll get involved with Ariana. Harry just says he's going to let it play out. They find out that the owner of the pinpoint, J.W. Caldwell, died in 2039. He calls Max. Burroughs and Evans are both from Baltimore, further confusing the crime. Max is dressed perfectly on the screen, as he always is, and the bionic Jody has short hair. There's a tension between these two characters that works very well with the refined Max and the blunt, to the point, Jody. Samantha Evans' body was never found, yet somehow she's been on Mars and used her credit to rent the rover. It's later found out that J.D. Caldwell's lover was indeed Samantha Evans. Caldwell was at the Platinum City residence when Evans disappeared. Patno and Harry are checking out Lockheed and Oakley's background. The next morning, the sand mounds cover the connector road to IP5. The cleaner trucks are out, spewing sand into the rock-strewn desert. The translucent white dome and connector tubes of IP5 are bright in the sunshine ahead. He pans the valley toward IP7, the next plant. Rapp was murdered 8 kilometers away. They're on a rover bus that moves into the transition surrounds of IP5. Little Ed Stanton comes out to greet them. Green transport trucks bring the steel beams away from the smeltering area. Orby is a green hard hat, fat-faced man with wide shoulders. Other men in red hard hats accompany them to the elevator. Joe Lockheed, the plant manager, is still missing. Stanton says that Lockheed left at 12:47 on the road to IP7. Joe Lockheed's T-suit was covered with dust. The suit was thrown into a zap duct. Fiery orange glow of the vats below mixed with the men in green suits and bubble protectors. The huge steel bars move along the conveyor belts. Orby tells him that he heard a commotion in the plant yesterday. Rapp and Lockheed were violently arguing. Rapp followed Lockheed out to the outer area and said he had had enough. Enough of what? They play back the surveillance track of the upper room. Lockheed has had enough of being blackmailed and threatens Rapp. Desmond has been listening to the whole thing. Jim Oakley entered the plant to the lunchroom with something from his locker. Harry speculates that it might be a pinpoint pulsar. And now with Oakley missing, things are getting confusing. Joe told Rapp definitely on the file that he was leaving for IP7. Was Rapp waiting in the lurch? There's a visual of Jim Oakley following both men onto the road. Was he trying to kill Lockheed or trying to kill Rapp? Harry said he's going back to Livingston and then he's heading home to Orbitus and he's quitting the case. Patno types into his zip and Harry picks up the memo. Jason Rapp was Oakley's wife's lover. Rapp had parroted his information from Oakley's wife. 3 individuals could have tracked Rapp down now. Patno slips on the rover bus leading out of IP5 and Harry tries not to laugh. There's no record of Evans' arrival and departure on the planet Mars. Harry says he's going back to Livingston to relax and take a swim. And Patno says, and then meet the woman you left behind 10 years ago. Harry purchases a new Suco and neckliner. Now he regrets leaving the investigation. He wonders where Oakley's rover ended up. The sand on Oakley's rover matches the sand in Evans' T-suit. It was a 28-kilometer round trip. He's convinced that Evans wouldn't know about any transportation regs. Patno cuts his hand on the rover opening bubble. Anybody near that rover would have done the same thing. Mrs. Kara Oakley, Oakley's wife, was on a weekend excursion to the Orbitus Gaming Hall where she met Jason Rapp. Rennie is checking out Evans' credit while Max and Jody are in Baltimore doing a background check. And then he heads out for his date with Ariana. He crosses the dome by tram, but finds that a short, stocky Asian man is trailing him. He dubs him Chub Chew Chub. He catches the escalator to the platform. He uses the palm scanner. Why did Evans use a card and not a palm or a retinal scan? Sadie calls him from the office. She says that he's dressed to the hilt. She still can't locate Rennie in the transaction zone. Evans was 27 years old when she disappeared from Platinum City. There was no trace of her body ever found, and her brother Dan died 2 years ago in Baltimore. There's no record of the disbursement of her account balances. And then Sadie says to Harry, "Enjoy your evening with Ariana." Harry's convinced that Patnaud has talked to her. Sadie left the bureau with Harry when he retired a few years back. The tram moves along as the Excelsior's light, strong in the desert night, comes into view. His heart pushes against his neckliner as he thinks about meeting Ariana. But he also thinks that it's a coincidence that Evans died 5 days before Caldwell. Then he spots Chubb in the third car back. He runs through the train, calls Patnaud, and Chubb disappears. He's at the Excelsior and moves up the polished, carpeted marble stairs as a Westminster chime sounds in the background. John O'Neill, his old supervisor at the Bureau, used to say that keeping people waiting gave you the advantage. The conversation in the Excelsior mixes with the piano. Miss Cervantes, according to the maitre d', has an alcove reserved up ahead. She's wearing a pale blue dress, white gloves, and has bare shoulders. In the background is a wide window of the Barsoom Domes. Harry hits his scanner twice, tipping the man that brought him over to the alcove. The rocky gondola falls, highlight the wide window of the Barsoom Dome in the background. That's when Harry quotes Lord Byron and says, "She walks in beauty like the night." Ariana has a slew of scents. She's beautiful and charming. Harry tries to dazzle her with rehearsed lines. She mentions how she's so alone. She was 32 years old when she left Harry at the Barsoom Dome. She said she's sorry because she was a 32-year-old aspiring socialite who didn't know where she was going. The waiter comes over as Harry stares at the Montero Gorge. He orders some Oricon Vineyard wine. Ariana is off to the restroom, but as the door opens, he sees her putting liquid into each eye. Her right glove is removed as the waiter pours the wine. She returns and says she has 3 clients in the Excelsior and a half dozen more at Whittemore. It's at that time that Chubb appears again near the mezzanine. She talks about her numerous allergies, but Harry excuses himself and tries to take a picture of Chubb, but gets a fuzzy image. With Chubb long since left, he returns to the table. She wants to go back to the Barsoom Dome, but Harry says he doesn't want to ruin perfection. Harry leaves Ariana outside her room at 2:30 a.m. All the old feelings were now coming back. He retrieves a message on his zip. Patnaud was seated on a sofa watching a real ball game with his grandkids running around. Patnaud informs him that a blue eye lens filter was found in Samantha Evans's rover, and there was a rip in her T-suit. The genetic material found on the T-suit is irrelevant because genetic material is not required by law of inhabitants of anybody on Mars. However, the hair is not living blonde hair, it's a simulation. There was no disposable facial squeeze found either, according to Patnaud. Harry looks up at the golden sheen face of the Excelsior. Chubb is not there. He picks up a memo from Sadie. Rennie is at the Lizard's Tongue in the transaction zone. He also finds out that Burroughs, the tram operator who was killed by a pinpoint pulsar, was killed by Caldwell's pinpoint. Harry makes contact with the Lizard's Tongue, and for one droid he gets to talk to Rennie. Rennie says that he knew Rapp, and Rapp was a pretty good cheater, but he was reckless. He's never heard of Samantha Evans except through Sadie. They both agree that Desmond is covering up something in IP5, and he wonders whether there's anything between the Turcottes and Evans. Harry relaxes on the tram, moving to his hotel at the Dillon. He tells hotel security about Chubb. Another memo forms on his zip. It's Patnaud. Oakley shot 2 men in the park that very evening. Patnaud says they don't know why Oakley was in the park and they can't find him. They also don't know where he got the pinpoint.
Patno says he will charge Oakley in Rapp's murder if he finds him. Harry zip sounds. Samantha Evans' T-suit was ripped at the forearm. Harry is in bed thinking about Chubb following him all night. His zip memo sounds. He shuts off the Hebon lights in the room. On the memo, Rennie says that Caldwell was a bachelor who died of a heart attack, but in reality, the autopsy showed frequency tissue disruptions. The second part of that memo says that Ariana and Caldwell were close, very close. Rennie agrees to travel to Platinum City on Orbitus. Rennie is wondering now, as Harry tries to absorb the Caldwell-Ariana lover connection, whether Ariana snatched Evans' credit. He puts in a zip check on Ariana to check on Ariana or Evans' shuttle payment on the way to Mars. Ariana would have had to arrive a day earlier than what she said. She was shorter than Samantha Evans and could have used a disguise. He sits back and wonders why she would kill Rapp. The Orbitus records show that she left the hotel on the midday shuttle. She arrived at the Excelsior around 5. There's no Ariana or Samantha Evans on Orbitus shuttle records. Harry slowly falls asleep. It's a whooshing sound, the sound of an inverted pulsar that wakes Harry from a sound sleep. He looks around and realizes he's not going to find the overcharging pulsar. He claws at the door, then he fires at the door as the sound increases. When he can't get out of the room, he moves into the berm ledge outside the room. The sound ceases, and he knows that's a prelude to an explosion. He claws onto the building edge, high above the ground below, as a giant orange explosion filled with smoke flies out of the room. He holds on with his fingers as the fire spreads inside, and now Harry Cobb is stuck out on the ledge. It's a deadly drop down to the pavement below. The tracer unit picks him up. He's connected to life scanners and nutrient pushers. Patno shows up. There's a memo from Rennie in his zip. Patno listened to the memo about Rennie bringing Ariana into the investigation. But there's no one flight. Ariana is 5'2" and Samantha Evans was 5'7". The simulated lens that Patno found in the rover is now missing. He makes the point to Harry that Ariana's arm would have been severely injured if she had been inside that T-suit. Harry thinks back to his rendezvous with Ariana and how she had removed her right glove in the ladies' room. Again, he'd have to check the private flights onto the planet before Rapp's murder. Ariana is off now on a business trip to the Whittemore Dome. Oakley and Joe Lockheed are both missing. Harry sleeps most of the 6-hour travel to the Whittemore Dome. The Whittemore Dome is on the edge of a huge crater. Harry checks for Chubb and figures that he was the one that set the pulsar back in the Dillon. He's uneasy about the Rapp murder now, as sunlight spreads across the crater. He's not sure about Ariana's involvement in the murder at all. Nor did he discount Desmond or Oakley's role in the cover-up. Max memos him on the zip from Earth. Harry is connected to Earth and sees Max and Jody overlooking Baltimore. Max reports that Samantha Evans' brother reported her missing when she failed to return from Platinum City in the Vegas colony. The brother is now dead. Harry is heading to the Dunstable Hotel inside the Whittemore Dome. Rennie is looking into Evans' credit. Conversation ends. The Whittemore Dome reflects the reduced Martian sun. He walks a full kilometer to the dome. Did Ariana have a coal burn on her arm? Lockheed had ditched his T-suit following Rapp into the Martian desert. He had mixed feelings about Oakley's involvement in this whole murder. Now he risks the rekindled relationship with Ariana. Ariana had booked a conference patio at the Pelican Resort. He locates her inside the foliage and huge green hebons. There are no scratches or abrasions on her arm. She maintained a wide smile when she saw Harry, but Harry sensed it was just a cover. Her voice was tight and tense. He asked her directly whether she knew Samantha Evans. She tells him Samantha was a tramp. She had never heard of Jason Rapp. Maybe she wasn't involved at all. But she calls him a son of a bitch and a low-life gumshoe. And then she says, "Goodbye, Harry. Enjoy the rest of your life." It was as if Ariana had beat Evans in some weird competition. Harry was mysteriously in love with Ariana and had just circuitously accused her of murdering Jason Rapp.
Patno and Gwen are at a restaurant. He's upset with the Turcottes and what went on in IP5 and insists that Oakley knew everything that was happening. It's at that time that Harry learns that Rapp had an affair with Oakley's wife. Ariana and her clients move down the long escalator. She looks relaxed. Patno says he has nothing on Ariana, and there's nothing about Ariana on shuttle records. If Desmond doesn't start talking, Harry is thinking about calling the Bureau. He needs more information about amalgamated sureties. Desmond and Ariana know each other socially. He locates Ariana in a bar 3 blocks from the hotel. A man named Miller is spewing out figures to her. Harry secures his Livingston ticket and gets on the tram. He's 8 cars behind Ariana. No one has recently been treated for a cold burn at any field unit near Livingston. More private flight information is needed from Patno, but he does find out that a blonde-haired woman came in for treatment, a Wanda Mullen, who paid in droits. He needs to place a magnifier over Ariana's wrist. There's nothing in planetary records about Wanda Mullen. Ariana could not have anticipated the cold burn. After the murder, she returned to Orbitus and resumed her business. Ariana now entered the port elevator. Patno says that he needs evidence. Oakley is arrested by Kranz and later roughed up. Out of nowhere, he has a Turcotte lawyer named Alden Bardsley. Evans's credit report is stalled in court because of jurisdictions. Mrs. Oakley arrives at Patno's office. She has short hair and a tight blue bodysuit. She shows signs of availability. She had an affair with Rapp. Kranz is with another Turcotte lawyer named Emmons. Mr. Oakley, according to him, is a Turcotte employee, and Cobb says to him, "You got a damned answer for everything, don't you?" Oakley is placed in a detention cell. He's a rangy man who's wearing a yellow detention suit. He says he followed Rapp, both Lockheed and Rapp. Rapp was a con man and didn't know much, and he refuses to talk about anything at IP5. Harry and Patno travel out to the Turcotte estate. It looks just like Earth. He makes contact with Rudy, the Turcotte butler, whom he's known for years. Desmond and attorney Bardsley move out of the large Victorian house. Bardsley has a perpetual smirk on his face. Oakley wanted to kill Rapp, says Bardsley, but Harry doesn't think he did. Harry again asks Desmond, where is Joe Lockheed? Desmond admits to technical problems at IP5, but he said all that's been corrected. Harry accuses Desmond of sending the Asian man after him to kill him. Desmond orders Harry and Patno out of the house and off the grounds. Harry talks to Rennie, who says that Ariana inherited all of Caldwell's money. Harry has the distinct feeling that he's dealing with someone who could kill with a skewed sense of inner justification. Ariana's inside the Amalgamated Sureties building. Harry takes a tracer to the entry. He's reviewing the public records. These policies needed to be rewritten with higher premiums. The premiums were invested, and what Harry Cobb soon realizes is that LaBelle's policies were coming due, and that would cause a severe crunch financially to the company. Ariana is departing the building and spots Harry. Harry looks down at her and wonders whether she was the killer. The investigation led to her because of Evans and Caldwell and the bogus policies. Harry gets overcome when he meets her. She said she never should have left him alone at the Barsoom Dome and takes his hand and convinces him to travel to the Cervantes estate. She tells him that Lo Hoi was sent to follow him, but he did not blow up the room. Harry is sick of the perfect, well-timed answers. Why had he allowed himself to come out to the Cervantes estate at all? Ariana claims she was with Lo Hoi at the Melba Terrace when Rapp was murdered. Harry tells her he has no business being out there, but she has an answer for everything. She wants him to stay for dinner, and she said she didn't use Samantha Evans's identity. Samantha had coping problems, was a vindictive and plotting person. She would have done anything for revenge. Ariana again states she has a definite alibi for every murder. They have a quiet dinner, and her eyes captivate Harry again. Amidst the bountiful food, Ariana arrives in a beautiful blue ruffled dress with azure eyeliner and pervasive perfume. Harry says to her, "How could I ever leave such a presence?" In the middle of conflicting circumstances, Ariana again makes a case for Samantha Evans being the murderer. And then she said, "Let's talk about us." She talks about Barsoom being a time that I wished could have gone on forever. She lost herself and was running from that closeness. Harry says to her that he's really never gotten over it. In the back of his mind, he realizes this could just be a diversion or a killer. She speaks in almost a whisper in a 7-course dinner that lasted 2 hours. Ariana switches to professional mode. She brings in a stringy redhead guy named Stanley Miller, who was with her father for 15 years. He speaks in constricted sentences and shifting eyes. Ariana steps out while he talks to Miller. Miller claims that LaBelle recklessly sold policies on the way to Mars. He's afraid that Harry is drawing erroneous conclusions and that the policies have no value to Amalgamated Sureties. Harry disagrees. Miller again says it's mere coincidence. Harry says that Miller or one of his subordinates could have monkeyed with the policies. He requires an accounting for everything. Miller is upset at the insinuation. Miller leaves with an annoying lip smile. Harry then finds out that all his communications have been blocked. He has no weapon and no communication. He badgers the servants and knows that Platinum City is a distance away. He's convinced that Samantha Evans is indeed dead, and Harry is in Ariana's way. The problem is, he still found her alluring and charming. Harry needs to get off the estate. No one can find Ariana, and the candles are all out. Now he wonders if she was going to bring him into the bedroom and then murder him. He requests transportation, or he will walk the 15 kilometers to Platinum City. Through the pathway and bushes, he heads off the estate. Security tells him to come out. Pulsar beams are lighting up the area. There's fires in the dried leaves. He runs like a scampering rat off the estate toward Platinum City. Small overhead sprayers are dousing the fire behind him. He climbs over the ledge, overlooking Platinum City. A tracer arrives for the spotlight, with the same security voice cursing and taunting Harry. Louder voices emerge from another craft. Ariana is standing with a pinpoint in the open craft. She's in fatigues and wearing a real ball cap. The security detail was only doing their job, she says. Come back to the estate. Lo Hoy has been arrested by Patno. Patno is convinced that Lo did kill Rapp and the others. Did Lo just implement her directives? He opens up a connection to Patno. Patno is booked on a commercial flight to Orbitus. He says that Lo had access to Evans's credit and used a facial squeeze and wig to accomplish the murder of Jason Rapp. It's all over, Harry. He did it. Harry stays the night with Ariana above the glowing pool. He couldn't find any holes in her story. Her power attracted Harry, her charm seduced him, and her story baffled him. What if she had indeed ordered the deaths? He's on the grounds and may have been wrong, however, about blaming Ariana. She appears in a sheer gown, which he calls the perfect reincarnation of some lost dream. She has a powerful scent. She unwraps the fabric and strips down naked. He makes love to her in her bed, just like the Barsoom Dome. In the morning, birds chirping awaken him. He's caught in a mix of emotions. He's calling her name down by the pool, but she's gone. The servants don't know where she is. Harry thinks back to meeting Ariana when she was 32 years old, how their eyes met when her father was giving a talk at a company convention, and how Ariana made the remark that night that commitment is a weight around your neck. They talked deep into the night and then walked the Livingston Rim. Things were collapsing now. Harry had lost himself to her on the Livingston Rim 10 years ago. As Rennie enters the atmosphere and breaks for Mars, Harry thinks about the long water sheets descending down the Montero Gorge 10 years ago. He said that he was in love with her deeply and completely, and then one morning, she was gone. There's a memo on the window from days before. Harry now says that he'll get her committed to a residential detention colony so she will not be executed. There's a huge dust storm near the Barsoom Dome. Rennie keeps asking him, "Are you sure you want to do this, Harry?" But Harry has no doubts that Ariana is inside the Barsoom Dome. Rennie thinks that Lo Hoy is with her. They receive permission to enter the outside port 14. They check the pulsars. Rennie says that he needs to pressure Patno. Port 14 leads to the surround and into the dome. Harry longs for that time long ago inside the Barsoom Dome, alone with Ariana. Ariana is not listed with Lohoy or Evans on the manifest outside the Montero Gorge. He wants to know who is at the Montero Chateau. There are 10 or 15 people hiking the gorge at the present time. Harry wants to hike the gorge. He will be notified if Evans, Ariana, or Lowe show up at the outside surrounds. Inside, the dome has a simulated blue sky. The chateau's brown A-frame is as he had left it years ago. The long bridge and river below the valley floor led up to the tumbling falls down from the Montero Gorge. He calls Ariana on the channel, but Rennie doesn't believe she's here. When Ariana answers on a scratchy channel, Rennie says, "I'll be damned." Patno is less than 2 hours away now. Shadows form along the distant canyon walls. Rennie tells Harry that we're sitting ducks out here. Inside the chateau, the same painting of a woman with luminescent skin by Rembrandt is hanging on the chateau wall. The flowery wallpaper is exactly the same, and the floorboards are warped, just like they were when he walked across it in his bare feet 10 years ago. He moves past the stone fireplace as the dim light moves across the braided rug. It's at that time that Ariana is on channel again. She tells Harry how she never understood her demons. He tries to get her to come back to the chateau. The signal, according to Rennie, is from an orange metal tower across the gorge. Rennie tells him bluntly that they're in a hostile situation. Once outside, Lo Hoi shoots at them at the bridge. The bridge lurches toward the canyon and snaps. Ariana says on the channel that she's so sorry, Harry. Harry tells her, "Go to hell, will you?" He needs now to climb to the top of the bridge. He doesn't even know if Rennie is still alive back near the chateau. He climbs up the bridge. It's a race against Lo, breaking the strands with his pulsar. The wind pummels his clothes. Lo's lunatic eyes are now visible as he shoots the pulsar into the cable strand. Harry climbs onto a long, sharp rock. The bridge cracks and is dragged down the rocks and then free falls into the canyon. The wind howls as he climbs on the 2-meter extrusion. Out of nowhere, a pulsar beam hits Lo and he smacks against the rocks and vanishes down into the canyon. Again, Ariana says on the channel that she's so sorry, Harry. She killed them all, and the policyholders. And she ordered Lo to kill Harry at the Excelsior. Now she says that she must die. She bends her knees on the rocks. She spreads her arms and glides into the air just a few meters over Harry's head, and then she's gone. A tracer descends to Harry 2 hours later in the canyon. In the darkened area, Patno appears bright in the opening. They put a thermal blanket around Harry. Rennie is still alive. The craft moves away from the cliff. Harry then says to his friend, John Patno, "She's dead, John. She's dead." In the epilogue, Harry is back alone at the Montero Gorge a long time later. Rennie's chest has been in a green body wrap for 2 weeks. Desmond admits to having replated steel. There's no fine and no restitution to those who purchased the steel. Rennie said that Harry's going away to get all this out of his system. There's a solitary gray stone back at the Montero Gorge that designates the burial place of Ariana Cervantes. Harry can only expel the hurt by throwing himself into the pain. He runs his fingers over the stone letters, and then he recites Lord Byron.
She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed into that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace, which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where the thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, so eloquent, that smiles that win, the tints that glow, that tell of days of goodness spent, a mind, a peace with all below.
a heart whose love is innocent.